Welcome to another episode of the Silman Wrestling Podcast. I'm your host, Brian Battisto. Before we talk about today's guest, if you guys go on CaliWrestling.com, you'll be able to see pretty much all of our old episodes. We still have our episodes still on YouTube, on our YouTube channel, and on Spotify, but we're looking to expand and now be on a website. So check out CaliWrestling.com where all of our episodes are posted. Also, this is coming. We are officially going to be getting Silman Wrestling Podcast t-shirts. Looking at making those with one of my club coaches from back in high school. So really excited for that to come out. Now, today's guest is Poway head coach John Meyers. Really excited to have this conversation with him. Just talking about his program and talking about the guys on his team and what they've been able to build down there in San Diego. So I hope you guys enjoy the show. Coach Meyers, dude, super excited to have you on the show. Very excited. I'm very thankful that Steve Neal was able to, I don't know if you really introduced us, but he definitely was like, you watched the show, and then I think I shook your hand, and that was kind of like how we met.
Yeah.
Dude, he's a super nice dude.
Oh, he's incredible. He is incredible. Yeah.
I saw him. It was right after the tournament ended, and me and my buddy Carlo were just kind of sitting in those chairs like that are on the floor. And he's like moving what looked like a dolly and just like helping clean up. And then he almost fell. So like Carlo knew him from CSUB, and we were just watching. We're like, dude, what are you doing? Why you're like gonna get hurt cleaning up after the state tournament?
Yeah, he's been such a great addition to our program, and we have kind of an inside joke with the other coaches. We're always telling each other. We always say, what did we ever do to deserve this guy? He's just on a daily basis, not only helping out, but trying to make things better on a personal level for individuals, if that makes sense. He's just, humble, giving, caring, but there's another side of him, that's very intense. And, that's one of the things that made him a great wrestler, of course, and great planner and very organized. And yeah, he's just a great addition for our program.
Yeah, for sure. We did something to where, so he still has an apartment or like a condo, I guess, to be more accurate, in Bakersfield. So when we were getting ready for our conference championships, he like met with each one of us individually to talk about just mentally, like how we're going to handle, a postseason tournament. And I think like stuff like that, especially, now I feel like a lot of programs are doing it where they're mentally having like a mental game plan for the sport. It just seems like that kind of experience is like, dude, I have a world champion, a guy that won, I think 3 Super Bowls, it's competed at a pretty high level that has a lot of experience, like helping me come up with a game plan. I think is pretty cool.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And the other part of it that you didn't mention is where he came from. Not only is he, Super Bowl champion, world champion, NCAA champion, but he came from a place in high school where he's kind of a self-made man, and I guess college too, when he got there. So he knows both sides of it. So in our program, we have about 80 to 85 kids in the program, and there's 14 kids on the varsity A. Well, then you have 60 something other kids that are not at that level, and he can talk to every one of them, and he can tell those kids, I've been there. I know what you're going through. I know what's happening in your head. So that's a good part of it too.
Yeah. Talking about like self-made men, I guess, of those 14 stars, most of those kids start wrestling when they were pretty young.
Yeah. All of them. I'm pretty sure all those kids started when they're real young.
Yeah, I feel like it's getting harder and harder, at least for where we're at Frontier. It's hard for those kids that just want to come out and start wrestling, and it's hard for them to make the lineup, which I think is a good thing for the sake of your program's getting more competitive.
Right.
But as a relative, I guess, self-made man myself, like it's hard. My heart goes out to some of those kids that I know, try to do the right things and might not ever start.
Yeah, and I like to tell those kids and their parents, and I'm sure your program is like this, winning and losing and being on the varsity and placing at state, that's only one small facet of the program. Being on this team and learning, character skills and being directed academically, and being a part of something that's a really good thing, for a lot of different reasons besides winning and losing, is really the biggest part of our program, and should be for most programs. And so then, those kids that don't make the lineup, they're getting a great deal out of it. The mentorship that you're giving and your other coaches are giving, the resources that they have with these coaches and the people on campus, that because of the wrestling, that's a huge deal. And that's what we kind of tell parents and these kids that struggle to make the lineup.
Yeah, and I definitely recognize that, and I think that's super important. I think sometimes, and this has happened to me a couple times this year, and then a couple times last year, where I get too caught up, I think, in trying to win, that I forget why I'm doing this. And I'm thankful I have, some mentors as on the staff that can kind of check me a little bit, which I think is important. When you started coaching, I know. Did you go right back? So after you left Minnesota, did you go right back to Connecticut and start coaching?
I did. Yeah. I was a grad assistant for, I think, a year. And then I became the head coach at a Division II school there. And then I had a great stint there for 4 or 5 years. And then actually, Bo Bartlett's dad, the kid who's at Penn State, he wrestled for me and he was going to do some coaching with me. And through the Jay Robinson camps, we ended up in California one summer. And he's from Oceanside, of course, Andre Bartlett. And he said, "Why don't you come down and check out San Diego?" I'd never been here before. And took a trip down from San Jose from the camp and spent about 2 weeks and did my first longboard surfing and just fell in love with the.
Did you stand up the first time?
I don't know about the first time, probably not, knowing me. But yeah, I immediately, when I went back, I told my athletic director, I said, "I'm not sure when, but I'm moving to San Diego." And yeah, the rest is history.
That's pretty awesome. I think I read somewhere you drove across the country too.
I did. Yeah. So I packed up, I just packed up a duffel bag and got in my little car. I think it was a little Corolla or something, and drove across country.
How'd you go? Did you go Route 66?
I went
Through the
from
Southwest?
Connecticut. From Connecticut, yeah, I went right down to Atlanta. I had family in Atlanta. Spent a night there, then went to New Orleans. Spent a day or two there, and then stopped in Dallas. I had just recently read Friday Night Lights, the book, and that had a big effect on me. And so I stopped there at Permian High School and checked that out in Texas. And then one more stop, I think, in New Mexico, and then San Diego.
Yeah. I read, I don't think I got through it, honestly, Friday Night Lights, the book. But I like how you kind of took some time to stop at different places and enjoy it. I actually, so I was a J-Rob intensive camp counselor the last year that they did it. And man, that was the most fun summer I've ever had in my life. And it was, I was a little bit
year?
like, it was 2019.
Okay.
So the last year that they had one before COVID.
Very
and
cool.
I was a little bit starstruck by Jay initially, but once I kind of got over that, I just tried to like pick his brain as much as possible. But one of the cool things I think about that camp and what I kind of took from it is like wherever you're at is like obviously like work really hard and like enjoy the people around you and enjoy like if you're there, go like I think we were there for I can't remember what camp. I think it was Pennsylvania and Edinburgh. And we just went up to Niagara Falls and we did like the whole May of the Mist thing. And I visited a buddy in Buffalo and stuff like that. So really just trying to enjoy where you're at. And I think that, I don't know, that's one of the big things I try to take away from that camp, I think.
Yeah. And I think, Jay stressed a lot of important aspects for living a great life, and definitely one of the biggest is pushing your limits and knowing that kind of human nature is going to tell you that you don't want to do certain things You don't have to do certain things. But realizing when you hear yourself telling yourself those things, that it's time to kind of push on and do great things. And kind of in the same realm of what you're talking about, the Niagara, I think it was couple years ago. I think it was 2 years ago. I kind of heard Jay's voice in the back of my head, and I try to do something. I call it great. It's a general term, but I try to do something great every summer. And I had a coach who was doing some hiking with Steve and Neil. They were hiking a lot, and he came back. This coach was a real good wrestler in his time, and a real good coach. And he came back to my office one day and he said, "Wow, man, I did we did a crazy hike today, and I'm beaten up by it." And I kind of looked at him. I said, "Hey, coach, you're a wrestler, like you just did a walk. That's what that was. It wasn't anything crazy." And so he argued with me a little bit about how tough it was and that I probably wouldn't have been able to do it, and some big steps, and joked about my little legs and stuff. And so I set out. I heard Jay's voice in the back of my head, and I said, "You know what? We're going to climb the biggest thing we can around here." And so we started looking online, and I can't stand hiking. I can't stand uh, walking or hiking. If I do something, I want to be like running full speed. If I get on a treadmill, by the end of it, I'm at like level 10, and the ramp is up, and trying to kill myself. So I looked for I didn't know anything about mountains or anything around here, and so we found Mount Whitney,
There you
and
go.
yeah, we put in for a lottery, and we ended up getting it. This 2 years ago, and I told all my coaches who's with me, and that one particular coach, he didn't end up going, but I had two other coaches, Zach Shanneman and Seth Wren, two of my pretty tough coaches. These guys are fit, and we didn't really train for it or anything, and I didn't know what I was getting into. I had a lot of people telling me, it's going to be tough, and the breathing, and you have to buy all this stuff, and I just kind of did my daily workouts, and we ended up going, and we showed up for the thing, and my two coaches had like thousands of dollars of gear on them, and like a pickaxe. One of them had a pickaxe, and they had these lights for their heads, and I showed up in running shoes, like old running shoes, and some my wrestling shorts and a t-shirt, and my actual backpack that I wear, for like holding
Yeah.
books and stuff. And had a bottle of water and a granola bar.
There you
And
go. Wait, just wait. You had one bottle of water and just one granola
yeah,
bar?
yeah, that's it. And so we
Did you
got
not
there.
do any research about this? You just showed
I
up?
did, but I was kind of like, I do fasting anyway. I don't really
Yeah.
eat till the evening, so I'm like, we'll go 10 hours and I'll be fine. I won't have to eat or anything. I'll get some water in me, and yeah. So we started at like 1 or 2 a.m. It was pitch dark out, and I mean, long story short, we made it up and back in one day. Um, People were kind of passing me, like looking at me, like, "What the heck? Like this guy, what does he do? Is this a joke or something?" But one of the hardest things I ever did in my life. I'm not gonna lie. It was very difficult, but it was one of those moments where I could hear Jay saying, do hard things, and um, on a daily basis, and that's one of our mantras with our program is, especially in this day and age, uh, kids need to do difficult things and be put in uncomfortable positions on a daily basis, to grow and to be ready for the real world once they get out of high school and college.
Yeah, because I mean, climbing Mount Whitney is tough, right? But to put in retrospect, like losing a family member or having to overcome something like that kind of magnitude, it's like
Right.
that whole classic line. Once you wrestle, everything is easy. It's like
Right.
might not necessarily be easy, but it's definitely maybe a little bit easier because you've
Yeah,
just trained your mind to deal with hard things.
absolutely. Absolutely. And that's, that's what makes wrestling so great, I think, as a sport, is because it's hard. And people don't realize how hard it is, especially at the level that we coach at. It's very difficult in a lot of different ways. That nothing against. I always say nothing against other sports. I'm sure they're great. I don't know what they do or how they go, but I just know wrestling. Um, just being in the sport of wrestling, it's a quote unquote fight every single day. It looks like a fight, it feels like a fight, and then mentally it's a fight as well, and that's what life is. And so I think it's kind of the closest microcosm of life that you can get, in a sport or an activity.
Yeah, especially, being able to gather yourself after a loss. I definitely want to talk about, what you guys have done this year. I kind of just want to maybe start with maybe one of the harder things for me to talk about. Dude, Laird Root is a dog. He's
Yeah,
an animal.
he is.
And his personality, just, because obviously I try to pay attention to guys, whether we have to compete against them or maybe it's something that I can learn about and apply to my own program as a coach. But it just seems like your guys like have a very I'm trying to think of the right words, but they just seem like very close to each other. And I think it was before Laird beat Miguel the first time at Battle for the Belt, and they had that whole other room open, and they had to delay the final because of the streaming. And I know with I was watching the Poway guys, and you guys, I mean, they were just chilling, like they were messing around, they were goofing off. Is that something that you necessarily promote, or is that something that kind of just happens organically?
Um, we promote it big time. And when I took over as head coach of Poway, that's one of the biggest things for me that I wanted for the program was the family atmosphere. So we started doing things immediately to try to capture that in our program. And yeah, I think it shows, with the way our kids interact with each other. And the other part of that is not just me, but the families that we have that are involved. They're fantastic, and they believe in the same thing. So they promote it, and it goes all the way down to the kids. We do some unique things, gatherings, and the kids spend a lot of time together on campus. They're always together. They're very tight as well. So that's important. And then when you talk about the relaxed atmosphere that they have, that's on a daily basis. We talk about that. And, you know, there are a lot of programs just in the state of California in the country that are working. I'm sure I don't know what other programs do that are working very, very hard as do we, and, at the technique, the conditioning, all those things. Um, my belief is that the way that you're going to separate yourself is in all of those other off the mat aspects of the sport. So I talk to my kids all the time, and some of those things are your sleep, your nutrition. Um, I talk a lot about stress factors, your relationships, your social relationships, keeping those stressors down, your academics. If you have D's and F, your stress levels are going to be high, and it's going to affect your wrestling. It just is. All those little things add up. When you have two great kids that are competing against each other, those little it's that difference is just razor thin. I mean, look, our two kids that we had that wrestled,
Yeah.
in that match, they're even. They're even, and maybe those little things are something that affect one or the other at any given moment. I mean, those two kids have gone back and forth, and so we talk a lot about that, and just staying relaxed and staying happy, staying real happy, and having a joy for the sport of wrestling and a joy for being around each other. And we talk on a daily basis, as do a lot of programs, about um, being grateful, having gratitude, and just being grateful for what we have and where we are.
Yeah, big time. And I think one thing that I see just from an outsider perspective, I think you touched on it, is obviously you want to work hard, you want to do everything right when you're in the practice room, but everything outside of that is just as important. It's like, yeah, you could maybe if you're a freak, right? And you've been wrestling for a long time and, you know, you're athletic, like you could probably win a state title without that stuff. But, you know, if you're really trying to elevate your program and try to just maybe increase that likelihood of achieving what you want in this sport just a little bit more. I mean, you guys literally have all your bases covered. Like you have an RTC program, and let me know if I'm leaving anything out. You have an RTC program. It seems like your youth club is like very established with, is it the Pounders and then the Poway
No.
Elite? No, if I not close, what's
Pounders? I think that's
Brawlers?
Yeah. No, we have the Slammers.
Slammers.
Close.
Dang it.
Yeah.
Dang
Yeah.
it.
Good. Yeah.
Dang it.
Yeah.
All right.
Slammers and Elite.
So you talk about the little things just like right now. Now I'm at like a couple hours from, I'm like, dang it, I messed up on that one, but it's all right. You guys have training lab, right? You guys do camps. What you have, like, I think a camp in Michigan and then a camp in like New York coming up. It's like what
Yeah.
you guys have all your bases. Like, is your process in establishing, I don't want to say like accessories, but all these other things to your program is like, it's really hard, I think, as a coach, and maybe what's frustrating sometimes is there are so many things in wrestling you can't control. I feel like what you guys are doing is you're trying to control as many variables as you can.
Yeah, that's a really good way to put it. And yeah, we have a couple other things going on. I mean, we have a college and career company that we work with also to try to lead these kids in the right direction as far as their academics from their freshman year on. Also, a couple other things like that. But yeah, my mind is always turning on how to get better, how to improve, and that's not. And again, that's on the mat, of course, and then that's off the mat as well for these kids. How to make the program better. I mean, constantly. I mean, I woke up at, I think it was 1:45 in the morning this morning in bed, and my mind was rolling about next week where we're starting our freestyle and Greco. And I mean, it's tough on me sometimes, but it's always working, and I have all these ideas in my head that I'm thinking about to make things better. And I think that's important for a program to always be trying to tweak your program and make it better, you know. And I'm assuming that's with business too, because a lot of people can they can say, hey, I mean, us right now, we won the state championship, and that's great. You know, we did a great thing, but immediately my mind is thinking, how do we get better? Where are the ways, you know, where are the things that we did that weren't so great? You know, we had some losses that I thought we could have won, and we didn't, you know, our goal was to score 300 points. We didn't score 300 points. And so how do we get better? You know, we're ranked number 3 in the country now. How do we top those prep schools that are doing things that we're not doing? And so constantly striving to make things better and not being satisfied with what you've done. And I also, you know, with that comes, you know, somebody told me that same coach that didn't climb the mountain with me, he gave me a piece of advice, and he told me that, you know, we need to celebrate the victories more. I need to, and because my mind is just on to the next thing, you know.
Yeah.
So we're trying to do that this year with the team and doing some cool things. But yeah, that's important for programs. Never be satisfied. And then the other thing, I guess I got into some advice here, but my other advice would be dream big as a coach. You know, my first month as the head coach, I had a list of about 20 items, and my president at the time, he was a former wrestler of mine, and I hired him to be the president of our foundation. And I told him, I said, hey, just hear me out here. You know, don't laugh at me, because I'm going to tell you some things that I came up with, and I want to see what you think. You know, and I honestly thought he would laugh at some of the things. And I got through with the list, and one of them was a regional training center. I wanted to build the first high school true regional training center. You know, there's some places out there that call, say, RTC, and they're not USA Wrestling certified regional training center. They're not supposed to be using RTC, but anyway. So I got through with the list, and he had a straight face, and he said, we can do all those. and we just need, a lot of it was money. We need to figure out how we get the money, or we need to figure out the business side of it. And so if you can surround yourself with people that can believe in your vision, and help you get there, dream big. We have more plans. In the next 5 years. I just told one of my old roommates from University of Minnesota called me up to congratulate me, and I told him, I said, this is nothing. We're just, you know, this is the tip of the iceberg. I said, there's a lot more coming in the next 5 years. People are going to be amazed at what we do. And a lot of that is because we have a foundation of members and parents and a community. Also, our administrators and our athletic director, our principal, and just behind us 100%, and kind of give us the green light to do things. And then we have, of course, the parents that believe in it, and they say, okay, if Coach Meyer says we're doing this, which all you put all that together, and it makes for just a great meeting. Yeah.
For this list that you're talking about, so you've been an assistant at Poway for about 16 years before you became the head coach. That was in 2018, right? Became the head coach of
Yeah,
Poway.
right.
Is this a list that you've kind of just been accumulating? And I know I think I read somewhere that you and Brandstetter had a good relationship, and he took a lot of your input, which I think, as I'm still kind of in that assistant kind of stage myself, but who I work with, we're able to kind of have very clear conversations, and we're able to come up with what is the best thing for us moving forward. When you became the head coach and you have this, this list of things that you want to do, was it something that it sounded like the president of your foundation was able to buy in, but what about other coaches on the staff? What about admin? Just initially, when you wanted to instill these changes, when you look at the legacy of Poway, it's like you guys have been good for a long time. It's like, how do you kind of prove yourself as really your first year as a head coach? How do you maybe instill those things that you want to change?
Yeah, I think it's a good question. The first thing is that I had been there since 2002, so I was kind of established in the community, as well as in the school with the administrators and the counselors and all those folks. So that made it a little bit easier. But yeah, some of the things that the ideas that I had, we kind of kept under wraps. And now that I think of it, now that you pose that question, had to kind of go around the side to get things done. And that was part of, the guy that I was working with was great at that. He owned a big business, and he was used to that. So that was part of the deal. And as I think, and my coaches were on board. The coaches were all on board 100% with me, and they were like, "Yeah, sure." Everything I said, they were like, "Yeah, sure, let's do it. That sounds great." So yeah, it was a great time, that first year, just kind of plotting everything out to where we wanted it, and getting things rolling. The freestyle and Greco thing that we really hadn't done with Coach Brandstetter. That was a huge part of it for me, and everybody bought into that. And I mean, I grew up on freestyle and Greco-Roman, and
Yeah.
my whole life I've been doing that since, I think, my first Greco match was in like fifth grade. So that was way back, I was way back in the, 1900s.
No, you're not that old. Um, are you planning on coaching for like another 20 more years? Are you trying to beat Brandstetter in that regard? Because he coached for like what, like 40,
Yeah,
I'm
he
sure, I don't
coached a
know,
long
42 years or
time.
something like that.
He coached a long time. I don't really put a date on it. I have I can retire within 10 years from teaching. I mean, I tell myself right now I'm probably not going to coach if I'm not teaching. Um, but who knows? We'll get to that point, and see what's going on. As far, you never know what's going to happen, how you're going to feel, things like that. But
Yeah.
I have a lot of things going on outside of the practice room, and I have two daughters that do dance around the country, and love to watch them and go visit them and things like that. And I have some hobbies that I do. So Yeah, we'll see. We'll see what happens. And teaching's real easy for me too. I have a great schedule, so that's not difficult, and I love it. I love the people I work with also. We have 4 or 5 coaches on campus too, so that makes it fun. And
Yeah.
so it's not something where it's draining, mentally or anything like that. So if it continues to stay easy like that, then I'll continue to do it. But and then when the right guy comes along, as far as taking over, I'll step down if it's the right thing to do. If it's not this guy's time to get in there, then I'll step down as well. So, but right now we're going strong. I want to see a few things out, and I'll be here for at least 8 to 10 years, I think.
Yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah.
I wish, I feel like we don't really see too many California teams that really invest a whole lot into freestyle and Greco, except maybe for like, I mean, I know Gilroy does a little bit in St. John
Yeah.
Bosco. But in the Central Valley, I feel like it's not really from the high school programs and more from the club programs.
Yeah.
Is that something that I know, again, you said you grew up doing freestyle and Greco-Roman. Was there maybe like some kind of advantage that you thought this is better for our kids to do this plan and compete in Greco-Roman and freestyle opposed to just continuing to train folk style?
I don't want to offend anybody here, but
This is what this podcast is about, offending people. So
offending people. All right. All right. So my thoughts on all that. Okay. To me, the California, I've been to a lot of state tournaments, when I was a college coach, Pennsylvania, New York, New Jersey, when I was in Minnesota, a lot of great state tournaments. Okay. Um, California is probably I mean, the best one I've been to, is the greatest, the most prestigious, that I've been to. But to me, uh, as far as reaching goals, the state tournament is very small, compared to making a world team, being a world champion, winning Fargo, things like that. It's state tournament. Those things, in my mind, are way higher. Um, Now you put that together with, I'm a big believer that freestyle and Greco-Roman uh, are very good for folk style wrestling. Will make you a better wrestler in folk style, and vice versa. You put that together with the amount of college coaches that look at, is this guy wrestling freestyle in the off season? Are they training at a high level? Put all that together, and it's a good recipe, because for a guy like Laird Root, Edwin Sierra, it's heartbreaking.
yeah,
That last match was just heartbreaking for them. But next week, what's on their mind is not the state tournament, or next year at state tournament. What's on their mind is making a world team, winning Fargo, being an All-American. I guarantee you that's what's on their mind right now. So it'll ease the pain a little bit, right? And at the same time, it helps me as a coach, because in the past, when we weren't doing freestyle and Greco-Roman, um, the training took a downward slant big time, because they weren't training it for anything, after that. Now, all of my kids, I mean, we had 25 kids qualify for Fargo last year. They're all either training for Fargo, or we have 30 kids that are training to try to qualify still till the very end for Fargo. So now you have this high level of training going throughout the spring and summer, until you take that 2-3 week break or whatever it is to
yeah.
get back in folk style. So it's critical to our success. It really is, in a lot of different ways. It's critical to our success.
Yeah, I feel like with any wrestling, honestly, in college too, is like that spring and summer is where you're going to make your biggest gains. I feel like, and I think putting something like a high level competition in front of the kid is going to be something that's going to help them jump levels. Not, well, a year from now there's the state tournament, so it's like you kind of, oh, I'm lifting and I'm training, but there's nothing in front of you, right? So it's like I still have 6 months, I still have the season, I still have all that time to get better. That's like you really don't have that time. It's like you do, but you don't. It's like how you spend that off season is so critical for your development. And I mean, like it's like being able to finish correctly, right? And freestyle, you have to, otherwise you're going to get launched. Or the mat
Right.
awareness, knowing not to go out of bounds, being able to feel like, if you're getting gut wrenched, like being able to feel like where you need to adjust your hands and your hips, and being able to feel where the pressure is going so you can resist it. All that stuff is very translatable to folk style. So I don't think would you say offend anybody? I don't think anybody's offended. I think it's just there needs to be more information, conversations about that, I feel like.
Well, I think there's some very, very, very good coaches around the country, I'm sure, that do folk style only,
Yeah.
and they train. Their number one thing that they're training for is the state tournament. And by offending them, I just mean like, I mean
It's not
that's
their philosophy.
not a big. It's not a big deal to us. The state tournament. I mean, it's a big deal, but it's not close to the biggest deal. You know,
Yeah.
and to be honest, I mean, I don't like to talk about people, but it's to me, it's kind of short sighted. You know, those kids should be. Everybody should be trying to make a world team. You know, your goal in wrestling is it should be to be an Olympic champion or an NCAA champion. I mean, NCAA champions, they're 9 times out of 10, their goal is to be an Olympic champion, right? I mean, when you're a little kid, your goal should be to be an Olympic champion.
Yeah.
That's what I
And
think. But
no, I mean, I agree. It's like, it's, I think I listened to a podcast when you were doing with, it was the 2-on-1 podcast, and you were talking about, it's like, you want to be a world champion, not just in wrestling, but like if you're taking out the trash, you want to be a world champion. If you're, a student, you want to be a world champion in the classroom. And I think it's like being able to build that kind of mindset that we talked about earlier. It's like, I can do anything because I know what it's like to train hard. And when you're able to apply those things to other things, um, I also think when you're talking about being short-sighted, it's like as a person, I'm not a very short-sighted person. I'm always thinking like moves and moves ahead. And I think that's important in the sense that kids today, I feel like are so focused on phones. Like, I'm a teacher too. So in the classroom, I'm pretty big on, hey, when we're doing any kind of discussion or somebody's talking, let's just no phones. Otherwise I'm going to take it, just so we can be present, be together. I think being present is super important, but also understanding like you want to build lifelong skills that, if you're doing a job interview and you feel a vibrate on your leg because your phone's going off, are you going to grab that phone? But it's like being able to teach these kids, it's like we want to be able to think long term about who we're going to become. And we're always trying to become that person.
yeah, and to be honest, I had a conversation this morning with we have a former wrestler's dad who owns a jewelry shop. So I went in to kind of show him some ideas for our state championship rings, and it was before they opened up, and we got to talking about just that, what you're talking about. He shared a story with me where a girl who's 25 years old interviewed with him, and she had her phone. She kept holding her phone onto her phone, and he ended up telling her, I can't give you the job because of these little things she was doing. And I see wrestling as our way as teachers and coaches. This is kind of our way to put our twist on society and create, great citizens. Because as a teacher as well, and you know that it is very difficult to teach the way that you want to teach to every kid, and to
Yeah.
teach those character building skills the way that you want to teach them. It's very difficult. And in the wrestling room, I can get my point across in some different ways, that I probably can't do in nothing crazy, but in the classroom, without getting complaints and pressure from admin, from folks, because of the way that you talk to them. And everything is very, very sensitive now. So I see that as kind of our battleground, the wrestling, coaching wrestling or sports as our opportunity to kind of mentor these kids in the way that they should be.
Yeah, that was a challenge for me because I'm a very straightforward person. So when I first started teaching and coaching, it was just like straightforward. And believe it or not everybody wants to hear things like how you see them, especially if you think you're being completely honest and transparent. Not everybody wants to be transparent.
Yeah.
And that was something that, again, same thing in the classroom. I learned very quickly you can't do that. Um,
Yeah.
is that I guess that process, I'm probably going to answer this on my own question, but you just need to get to know the kids, right? And it's the same thing when you're like, you have a very large staff. It's like being able to manage different personalities and different people. You just got to
Yeah.
get to know them, right? And then that way it's kind of easier to figure out, how do I reach this person?
You do, but it's very fluid, right? It's an ongoing thing because you get to know a kid as a freshman. They're not the same kid a lot of times as a junior or senior for whatever reason. And mentoring, when I was the Poway elite coach as well as the high school coach assistant for a long time, and looking back, a huge part of my job as the Poway the Kids Club coach was mentoring those parents. Sometimes without them knowing, and trying to kind of steer them in the right direction that would be beneficial for their kids and the program in the future. And so, yeah, it's kind of a fluid deal where you get to know those kids, but it's an ongoing thing, and it takes a lot of teamwork, like you kind of alluded to. It takes your other coaches, it takes those parents. I tell those parents, we're a team. We have to all work together and stay in contact, communication all the time, and because there are some things that can slip by you, and even the teachers at school. I'm constantly talking to the teachers at school, and um, they know, every teacher on our campus knows that when I come by in the hallways, their job is to stop and tell me, good or bad, how those kids are doing. And I tell the whole team, I'll announce it to the team. Um, Jimmy had a great presentation yesterday in English, and or so and so skipped class, or I'll tell those kids and hold them to the fire either way. And so those are important things. Getting to know those kids and parents, and then also staying up with it on a daily basis, being alert and aware.
Yeah. So with that, I feel like maybe in the last, I'm not great with like timelines like that, but maybe like 5 years ago, there was this thing about like participation trophies and over celebrating. And now I feel like there's like the pendulum swinging the other way, and let's not celebrate those things. How do you kind of find that balance between celebrating a kid, but then being able to
Yeah.
move on and not, you get what I'm trying to say, not
Yep.
building them up too much?
Yeah, that's a great question. Um, and so I I guess I'm kind of in between. Uh, we have our banquet. I'm thinking about my banquet that's coming up in a week and a half, right? And we have to write down who's getting a varsity letter, and who's getting the outstanding wrestler award and the most improved and all these things. Um, I don't think we should give away trophies, but you know, I've heard of programs who, what, you're not getting a varsity letter unless you've won 10 matches at the varsity level, or you've gone to 5 varsity EA tournaments or something like that. I've changed that, and I will give a kid a varsity. There's no formula, but I'll give a kid a varsity letter who has helped the team out and wrestled in 3 dual meets, and maybe one varsity tournament, and even if he went, you know, 3-8, you're getting a varsity letter.
Yeah.
Where we could say, you know what, that guy's not tough enough. He didn't win, and take that attitude. But I think you need a little bit of both. I think you need to be flexible, and especially in our sport. Again, wrestling coaches have a tendency of, um, at least they used to. I don't know about now, but I think they do now. A tendency of what's the right words, of creating an atmosphere where only the toughest can survive. Instead of being flexible and saying, you know what, we're going to take on all these kids, and we're gonna create an atmosphere where a kid who is not the best wrestler or the most physically gifted or have the best conditioning, where we're gonna create an atmosphere where that kid can make it through the season, and whatever that takes. And he may not help your program win the state championship, but I'll tell you what, I told my team this after we got back from the state tournament, we have a wrestling PE class, and we've got, whatever, 60 kids sitting in the stands, and 14 plus the 5 girls that went to state are in the stands, and I've got all these other kids looking at me, and some of them don't even know, what the state tournament looks like, or that
Yeah.
probably some of them didn't even know that it was that weekend. And I'm talking to these kids, and I told them, I said, you know what, we're going to get championship rings, and you guys are all getting them. Number one, and number two, you guys are all state champions on this whole team. I don't care, if you didn't place at state, if you didn't go to state, if you just started wrestling this year and you've only wrestled 5 matches and you didn't even win a match, you're a state champion. And when you're an old guy like me, and you're 50 years old, and you're out somewhere with your friends, and they start talking about something and wrestling comes up, you better be telling those people you were a state champion with Poway High School. And we want to create this atmosphere where it's a great thing to be a wrestler. Because then that kid, he may have never even wrestled a varsity match. What if he has 3 kids? He's going to say, hopefully that kid, that father will say, my sons are going to wrestle. They're going to wrestle. And that's how we grow the sport. You and I make it a great experience for every single kid. We shouldn't be making cuts. No team should be making cuts in the sport of wrestling. Every kid should be allowed to wrestle. And then not so much like you're getting a participation trophy for doing nothing, but we have to celebrate those kids too, that made it through. And at my banquet every year, I tell everybody out there, I say, I almost respect those kids that never saw the light of the varsity A lineup more than I do the kids who are placing at state and winning state championships, because they're getting absolutely no notoriety for it. And here they are in the room, and like we said, in a quote unquote fight every single day, for what? They know, by the end of the season, they know they're not going to be a state champ. But we need to retain those kids, and those people are going to, be the backbone of our sport.
Yeah, and I think that's crucial. Frontier's only been open since 2006, so it's just trying to, I think, thinking long term, being able to build that alumni base and people that, are obviously just people that are out in the community that love wrestling. I had Chris Ayers on the podcast, and I brought up an interview that he did where he was talking about trying to get everybody at the local Starbucks, like seeing cauliflower as like a regular thing at people just at the local coffee shop. And I think that's kind of the mentality, I think that you're kind of talking about trying to build as a coach, is like these kids that maybe never went to the state tournament, one day they might, own a business, or they might be a teacher. They might have kids that, hey, what sport should we do? Well, let's try wrestling, because there's some familiarity and there's already exposure to the sport. And like you said, that's how we're going to grow it.
Yeah, absolutely. That's very important. That's I'm in communication with a lot of folks from Poway that are not on our championship boards in the room. The Masters champions and the state placers. But that's something that's been instilled before me even. I would hear Brandstetter talking about that. And vice versa. You could be a state champion and not give back and not be a great citizen, and those B guys, those JV guys, those people who came out for one year. I had a kid this year. He was a senior. He came out for his first year.
Yeah.
I don't even think he wrestled. I don't even think he wrestled the match, because in San Diego you can't wrestle JV, and we're literally 3 to 4 deep at every weight class, and I can't take 3 guys to a tournament. So I don't think this kid wrestled a match, but he made it through the entire season. This kid, and he'll hopefully go off and tell people, I wrestled at Poway, and that'll be a great thing.
Yeah, that's awesome. I mean, it's good. I feel so much better, because I think for one, I think it's great that you have your award ceremony 2 weeks after the state tournament because you can kind of process some stuff. Ours was on Monday, so it
Oh,
was pretty tough. It was pretty tough. Quick turnaround, especially how I think our season went and a little bit how it ended. It ended a little not as fun, but being able to have to talk in front of our entire athletics program, to being able to talk in front of our team was tough. But I think at those times it's important to be transparent to an extent, maybe not super straightforward, but just hey, we got to get better, and we have to spend a lot of time this off season on getting better. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, dude, I think with we didn't really get a chance to talk about Root, but
yeah,
I think when you guys wrestled us, um, it seemed like you had a very strong game plan, and I noticed that when I see you guys wrestle maybe other matchups where maybe you're not favored. It seems like obviously I'm sure you guys watch film and wrestling somebody before definitely helps. But how exactly is that process carried out when you're looking at scouting and getting ready for those tougher matches, particularly like with Root and that pretty tough weight at 150 this year?
yeah.
If these
Man,
are trade secrets, you don't have to
no,
tell me,
no.
but
I'm just thinking back. I'm like, oh, man, we had that kid scouted really well, and for the state tournament too. We were like, he's got that high C. Here's what you have to do. You got to stay in position. God, that kid got in on us at the state tournament, and then that year, and then this year, man, he was in 5 or 6 times in a row. We're just like, you can do all the
yeah,
planning.
you guys are
Um,
doing a good job. I know you're a thumb blocking and trying to take away that inside tie, but
yeah,
Root just has to have like mega hips, and he does that splits. And when you're Miguel and you got little arms, it's hard. It's hard to finish. The only way you can
yeah.
finish is picking them up.
And I was wondering too. I don't know if this is true, but and he probably won't admit it, Miguel. I think both of them were exhausted, tired, and I think it got a little bit difficult to finish because his arms were so tired as well. Those kids were going at it. Um, but yeah, we had some specific plans for when he gets to that inside tie, what we were going to do, and we had drilled it, and what to do before he gets to that inside tie as well. But again, when you get tired, kind of all that goes out the window.
Your hands
And
come up a little bit, and then
yeah,
all of a sudden that double leg just comes out of nowhere. And
and
man,
and at the state tournament last year, in the second period, uh, I saw Root when he was reaching, he was coming out of the stance just a little bit. And I don't know if you can hear it. I haven't gone back and watched it, but I was yelling at him. I was upset. Like I was telling him in the second period, you better get in your stance because I knew it was coming.
yeah,
And that's what happened. He came out of his stance just a little bit. You do that against a great wrestler like your guy, it's game over. Most of the time. Um, so yeah, I have such a great group of coaches, and we all kind of work together. And there are a few of them that just love to watch film. They love it. And then we get a game plan, and we start going over stuff in the practice room. And the other side of that is having kids who are acceptant of the technique that you're going to show, and changing things, and having a high wrestling IQ, and being able to go out there and carry it out.
yeah,
So yeah, I have a really big staff. We have a huge wrestling staff. One of the other things I wanted to do when I became the head coach was get our alumni back in the room, and so we have a bunch of former killers in there. We have Colton Nichols. Uh, he actually wrestled at Bakersfield. He was a state champ, and we have Colt Doyle, a two-time state champ, and Andrew Tausch, and Cody Doyle, and just a bunch of guys in there that are working with our guys one-on-one on a daily basis. And then you throw together guys like, great minds like Stephen Neal. We have Victor Lopez, who's one of the official coaches. Zach Shanneman, former Division I college coach. And, you can get a lot of things done. You can be very efficient with that kind of a staff. And that's what we're doing. And on top of it, we're still out there hunting down coaches. We're still trying to get more coaches. I want all of them. I want all the coaches in our
Yeah.
room, and so to do some more, some more great things. So yeah, it's a constant process of trying to build that.
How do you get, because I feel like, I don't know, I'm trying to figure out exactly to word this. You have a lot of coaches on your staff, some of them relatively new to the coaching game, some of them I'm sure have been around a little bit longer, different ages. How do you, I guess, interact with those guys and trying to get them all on the same page? Because as the head coach, that's kind of a big part of the job, is getting all your assistants on the same page. So you guys do like weekly meetings? Do you talk after practice? Is it more, you just talk to them, hey, what do you think? How is practice going? How do you kind of deal with all that?
Yeah, that's a good question. There's not a lot of formal uh, meetings. There's not a lot of formal meetings. Um, I'm a huge texter. I'm on my phone. You talk about the kids, they'll tell you I'm on my phone all the time, uh, and a lot of that is me talking to these assistant coaches, and whether that's in a group. We have I have a couple of specific uh, group texts. I probably shouldn't be saying this because a couple of them get mad. Like, what do you mean you have a couple? I thought I was in all. Um, but couple group ones, some smaller, some bigger ones, and then individually, I'm texting all of those all day with ideas. And because I don't know if it's whether it's because I'm so old or because I have so many things going on in my mind. A lot of times I'll forget things, so I text it out right away. Hey, what do you think about this? For tomorrow's practice, and the texts go in different directions depending on what it is. It might be something with Laird Root coming up against your kid, and I might see something on film that I'm watching, and I might contact Victor Lopez, and he's one of the go-to guys. And like, Victor, I saw this. What do you think? Can we do this in practice? And then we're talking about him taking him aside while we're doing this drilling and working on those things. So yeah, it's kind of like what do they call it? Balancing the spinning plates, and a lot of that we do meet a little bit before practice, and then like I said, I have 4 or 5 coaches that are at school all day that are teachers, and that's it. It's a pity for them because they have to listen to me whenever we're in the office together, asking them for things or telling them my ideas and things like that. It's a constant wheel. It's just always
Yeah.
moving, and a lot of different ways that I balance stuff. I will say this: I kind of pride myself on the fact that um, I'm not a dictator, and I'm not somebody that thinks I know everything. I've wrestled all over the world at the highest levels and coached college all the way down to kids wrestling. But I'm willing to listen to whatever coaches have to say, and I kind of I ask for that, and kind of like I tell my kids when they were younger, my daughters. I want to hear what you have to say. I might not let you go to that dance or whatever it is, but I want to hear what you have to say because it might convince me, And the same thing with the coaches. I can always say I don't think so, but I want to hear. And that's what's great about having so many coaches and such different coaches. Our coaches all come from a variety of places. You have Steve Neal, you have Zach Shanneman, grew up in New Jersey, wrestled for UPenn, coached at Columbia and Illinois. You have Victor Lopez, wrestled for Poway, went on to wrestle Division I at a high level. I have some guys on our staff that did not wrestle for Poway, wrestled Division III. I have some guys that wrestle for Poway and never wrestled in college. So you get all these different aspects. If you
Yeah.
only have a Stephen Neal and a Victor Lopez and a Zach Shanneman, the highest of the highest thinking, I think it'll take something away from what you're trying to do because you're not listening to that other group of folks that might see something else.
you're not as able to be adaptable.
Yeah. Yeah. And again, that's that same thing, right? Being flexible and understanding like, hey, these other people have a lot to offer. And I think I guess now that I'm talking about it, it's not magic that these people want to be involved in the program, the alumni and these folks. I think that's part of it, that they all have a stake in the program. They all, I hope and I think they all feel very important. They feel very important. We include them on everything. All the way down the line to our freshman coach. Our freshman coach was there at the state tournament coaching on the floor. So yeah, we try to include everybody, and everybody has a voice, and I want to hear it for sure.
Yeah, I think that's interesting. Just because I'm still trying to figure that piece out, and it's I kind of alluded to earlier. It's still talking to parents and still talking to coaches. I think I'm getting better at it.
Yeah,
But it's hard, and especially, I mean, I had full heartedly admitted this earlier. It's like I'm pretty young. I need to have more time, just to be able to I think sit back and listen and try to get better. And I think that's a big reason why I'm doing these podcasts. Is like I'm just
yeah, that's
trying
great.
to honestly just get better as a person and get better as a coach.
Yeah, how old are you?
28.
Oh yeah, man, you're
28.
just
There's
scratching the
times where
surface,
like
man.
there was a point last year where I was like, all right, I think I got almost everything figured out. And then it was the fall. We're trying to get like middle school and elementary wrestling
Yeah,
going. And
yeah,
because it's not in Bakersfield, it's just all through
right.
clubs. So I'm trying to kind of break that apart. And there were some setbacks, and like I think I tried to take on too much right before the season, because the season hadn't even started. And I was like coming home frustrated, and it's tough. Especially because I'm getting married this summer too. So that's another one of the questions I want to ask you. It's like, how do you, because your brain, I feel like, kind of works like mine. You're constantly thinking about a million different things and these different ideas. How do you be present when you're at home and with your family? How do you try to let those things go a little bit? I know it's hard. But what are some strategy? What are some things that you do?
Oh
Or do
boy,
you?
uh, my wife's here in the kitchen right now,
There you
smiling.
go.
Um, yeah, it's tough, but I feel like I've done a better job of that in the last few years. Um, and I think one of the ways is, and when you were talking, I was thinking this, is delegating. And as a guy, a young guy like you, I'm sure you want to get things done the right way, and you want to get them done in a perfect fashion. And one of the a really big piece of advice I would say is well, number one, include yourself, include people who you trust, and in your program, so that you feel a little bit better about delegating things. And there are going to be bumps, of course, because things are not going to get done exactly the way that you want them done. And that's at least for me, that's a very tough thing to handle. But you have to kind of let it ride, because that ties in with what we just talked about with those relationships with your coaches. If you're all over them, telling them like, you know what, you screwed that up, man. This is what you should have done. Um, you're not going to have those people around.
Yeah.
You have to kind of sometimes guide them and let them do the thing that they want to do the way they want to do it, and be happy with it, and then improve on that, right? So delegation has been a big thing for me. Um, and then just my daughters are doing some fantastic things right now with dance. One of them is on the national. They just won the national championship in for Ohio State. And my other daughter is a senior in the dance program in New York City. She's starting to audition for Broadway.
That's
And
awesome.
yeah, thanks. And just telling myself that I don't want to miss out on those things.
Yeah.
The wrestling is I have great relationships with these kids, but at the end of the day, it's got to be about your family first. And so I've tried to do that. I've tried to do that, and part of that is letting go. I don't go to all the big tournaments that I used to. I mean, it used to be every single weekend, and going to all the big tournaments. I mean, I missed the battle for the belt this year to go to that national championship in Florida for my daughter, and I wouldn't have done that in the past. And I thank God that I went. I mean, geez, we had such a special moment, and but at the same time, I trust my assistant coaches, to do a good job, and you have to, and
Yeah.
and I think I haven't really talked to them about it, but I'd imagine that they were probably, saying like, we got this, let's show coach, that we can handle this, and of course they can. I mean, you got Stephen Neal and these other guys that coach college. So, um, and then uh, with at the top of all that, I think, I talk about this a lot is ego, right? Ego is one of the biggest factors in a lot of problems in the world today when you think about it, all the way up to the things that are going on in the world and politics and it takes people sometimes a lot of years to realize uh, that shedding that negative part of your ego will be so beneficial, and that's something that I had to do at a young age. When I was a college coach, I thought, I'm from the University of Minnesota. I know everything, and I'm not going to let anybody in
Yeah.
here. And when I first took over, we didn't have people coming into the Poway room. It was shut, and it was kind of, the world against Poway, and we don't need anybody else. We don't want anybody else. And the president at the time, that was his first thing. He said, "I'm not doing this unless you open up the doors and let everybody in and let everybody join in on this." And it's a constant struggle, right? You working on yourself and especially your ego, and once you become aware of it, uh, I think it'll make things a lot easier for you, a lot less stress as well, because now we're not always thinking about uh, whether it's conscious or not. Coaches, maybe not all coaches, but a lot of coaches, when a kid loses or wins, it's a reflection on them, right?
Yeah.
You're embarrassing me. You're doing this. What really it has nothing to do with you. It has nothing to do with you. So um, that will reduce. Reduced my stress in the corner as well, and going to the state tournament. I honestly, I don't even look at when I go to a tournament, Doc Buchanan tournament, the whole first day I didn't even look at the scores, the team scores.
Yeah. I never do
I
that
just,
either.
yeah, I,
Maybe at the very end I will,
I
but
just I just started doing that, and because in the end, does it matter? Am
yeah.
I going to change the scores? One of my coaches in the van ride, I remember back to the hotel, told me, he said, "We're down by such and such or whatever to St. Ed's," and because and then you start thinking like we say a lot of things in public that maybe we don't mean, but then when you start thinking, you really start believing that, does it really matter? If we win this, I want to win this, but hey, if these kids wrestle their hearts out and they do what they're supposed to do, and everything is 100% with them, and we lose, what are we going to do? You know, I'll
Yeah.
be okay with it. And that's where people were asking me about the state tournament. What's what's your goal? What do you want to come out? What's a successful state tournament? What's a successful state tournament when you leave there? And I said, honestly, if they wrestle their hearts out and they fight through every position, um, you got to be satisfied. Whereas in the past, maybe me or other coaches, to this day, maybe, we have to win it. If we don't win it, and they're not saying this, but it's a reflection on them, you know. I put in all this hard work for you guys, and that's ego, man. And I see it a lot. I see it
Yeah.
a lot in coaching, man. And I want to say something to those folks, that are saying stuff in the corner to me and other people. We got some in our own our own county here that,
Yeah.
want to say something, but you know what? I'll just sit here and smile, and you continue, and they'll get the enlightenment, down the road, and like uh, doing things like you're doing, that you're maturing, listening to other coaches and things like that. I would have never done that when I was 26 anyway, a college coach. I wouldn't have done that. I'm like, this is the way
Yeah.
it's done. So that's great, man. That's lowering that ego for sure.
I'm trying. It's hard.
Yeah,
It's
yeah.
hard, but I'm trying.
And,
Um,
and and again, when you say things like that, it's hard. That's what makes it great, because it was, it goes back to the old day. It was really easy. It wouldn't have been that, it wouldn't take you on this journey that you're on right now. And not only learning for yourself, but shoot, you're connecting with people, and you're connecting me with other people, and Steve Neal, and all these people. That's what makes it so great, because it is hard. You're out there on a journey searching for stuff.
yeah, and I don't think, I mean, that journey never really stops. I know that sounds kind of like a
I know,
Hollywood movie kind
I
of
know,
thing,
I know.
but
That's right.
it
Yeah,
never stops.
yeah,
Um, I'm an idealist big time when it comes to that stuff.
yeah. That's great, man. Yeah,
Well, Coach, it's we've been going over an hour.
yeah,
And I know it's getting close to dinner time. Kind of just want to talk to you just briefly after I'm done recording.
yeah.
But I appreciate you so much for coming on. Do you have any like final words, final things you want to put out?
No, I just hopefully, I'm not big on, giving people advice. I don't really go on the internet a lot. I see a lot of people on social media putting out advice for people and things like that. I'm not big on that, but I would say, coaches, we have a responsibility to grow the sport first. And I know that's hard to think about on a daily basis when we're trying to win these championships. We're trying to get these kids where they should be as far as they're competing and things like that. But really, I have to do the same thing. Try to remind yourself on a daily basis about these things that you and I have talked about today. And lowering that ego, and you know just doing things for the sport of wrestling, and thinking long term for our sport.
All right, Coach. I appreciate you,
Yeah.
man. Thank you.
Thank you.